Alright, welcome back. So let's start doing this refactor of our project. So let's go inside of our source folder and I'm going to create a folder called components. So this could be if you want to create like multiple components and so on. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create a new file, a new component called user.tsx. Remember, we are using Typescript, so you need to put this extension. And I'm just going to create for now also a user.css like that. So this should be all good now. Let's just create in here these project. So now I'm going to do import. I'm going to do import React from React. Okay, I'm going to import the /user.css. This needs to be a capital because that's the name of the file. Okay, we got all of these. Now let's create the component. Let's do const user. And this is going to be a React.fc. Okay, so this is going to be a React functional component. And I'm going to put this in here like this. All right, so now that we created our React functional component, we're going to have inside a return. And what we want to return in here, I'm going to have a div with a class name. I'm just going to put in here some class names that we're going to apply because on the next video, we're actually going to like style them. So I'm just going to put the classes now for now, and then we can do the rest. So in here, I'm going to have a div with a class name of row. Okay, just like this. And inside, I'm going to have an h2 with a name, okay, and then a paragraph, which we're gonna have the name, for example, John or whatever. Okay, so we got this one, name, and then John, and then we're gonna do a horizontal rule like this. I think this needs to be inside of here. Okay, let's just make sure that we are organizing the code well. Okay, so look, we got this card, we got a row with this one, we got a horizontal rule just to create like some division, and then I'm gonna put another row. Let me just copy these actually, and then I'm gonna pass these as well. I think it's gonna be very similar what we are doing. Yes, so I'm gonna copy these one more time, like that. So this is going to be, was it H? And I'm going to put in here, for example, 23. And I'm going to put down here, this is H. And this is job. Okay, so this is going to be a driver. This doesn't need this. And finally, we just need a button. And we're going to need this class name need to be capital, and we're going to put in here delete button, and we're going to say delete user. Could be anything. All right, so we got in here our component. So basically we are just going to like remove the stuff that we had in the other app component. So let's just do an export of our user. Okay, so let's do exactly that. Export default user, just like that. All right, so it's all good. I think we are all good in here. We have an import React. That's better. I think there was like some typo in there. Okay, so going back into our app.tsx, where we have our all users. Now, we don't want to be having this stuff all the time, this kind of div in here, because basically we just created our own component. Okay, so let's do that. Let's just comment this one out. And what are we going to return when we are looping through all the users from the state? what we're going to do is we're going to have our user component. Now, obviously, if we have this user component in here, we need to import it on the top because we never imported it. So let's import that. Let's do import. And I'm going to say user. I don't need to have the curly braces because we did export default. Whenever you do export default, you don't need to put those curly braces around. So where do we want to export this from? I'm going to put // so we can look on the same level of directory. We want to go inside of components and we want to grab our user.tsx file. You can just do .user. That React will understand that that's the file that you are trying to grab. Okay, we got the user. Now, here is the thing. Where is my loop? Where is the loop? It's in here. Now, inside of this component, this is where we actually need to start, passing those values that you need to grab. So the values that I'm going to pass, so this is basics from React, but I'm just like telling you. So we need to pass some properties inside of this component so we can grab them then inside with the props. So I'm going to put in here, create a property of name, and the value of it is going to be the user.name from our loop that we did in here, just like this. So creating this, we're creating another one, which is going to be the age, another property, which is going to be the user.age. And finally, I'm going to pass one that is going to be the job. And this is going to be the user.job. Now, there's a problem in here, guys, which is at the moment, when we created our component, our user, we never specified what kind of properties we are going to pass into it. We never specified what kind of types we have in here. So we need to do that. All right. So in our user.tsx, we need to specify in here, okay, you could pass in here, for example, props like this, because that's how you grab all these properties. So you would grab, for example, props.name, props.age, props.job, and so on with this. Or you could go in here now, and instead of having the props, you can destructure this object and just grab these values straight away like these, like name, age, and what else was it? The name, age, and job. Now, obviously, at the moment, we don't know nothing about these values. We never specified the type of this. So what we can do in here to specify the type of this, let's go back into our app.tsx. And do you remember when we created this interface for how a user should look like with a string, age, job, and string? Let's just cut this interface out. Okay, let's just select it, cut it out from here. Let's go to our user interface, our user component. Let's paste it in here. And now we can say, look, this component that we are creating, which is a React functional component, let's put in here these kind of angle brackets. And we're going to say, okay, these values that we have in here, the name, age, and job, they need to have this shape of this interface. Okay, like that. All right, because look, I could just remove this one from here and just come in here. Look, this is a string and this is something. We could potentially do that, but we can just pass in here what are the values that we are going to pass inside. So let's do user int, pass it in here, and we are all good. Okay, so we are using everything that we need. Now, there's a problem, because if you remember in here, when we were creating our interface for this state, we said, okay, the current user is going to have an interface of user interface, but now we don't have this one in here. We don't have it. So because we don't have it, this interface that we have in here, that we are using for this component in particular, we can actually export it, okay? So we can export this interface so we can then use it in the app.tsx file. So let's do that. I'm gonna do import, and now I'm gonna put in here this like this. It should be fine. Yeah, I'm gonna put user. Actually, I'm gonna grab this because we are already importing something from this file. So let's do that. So user int. So I'm using this angle bracket, these curly braces, because we are just exporting it, not by default. By default is the component itself. Look. So the component itself is by default. You don't need curly braces. This one is just export. You need to pass the curly braces. All right. So now that we got the user interface, now is being used in here correctly. Let's get rid of this import that I had. Just cancel this. Okay, so we are all good now with all of these. Are we missing anything? Let me just double check. Yes, we are missing something now. We are missing now something, which is basically now this button, when we click on it, at the moment is not doing anything. Let me just delete this. So look, actually we don't even see. We see the name, we see the age and the delete. But look, when you click in here on the delete, nothing is happening. Okay, so we need to pass this function down here. So let's do that. So where are we looping through? Where are we looping through? Here. Let's pass the key as well. If you guys remember, we always need to pass just a key just to make sure that it doesn't complain about these. So this is the I. And we need to pass in here the delete function, basically. So let me see. I'm going to break this down into different lines so we can see these better. You can break these down as well if you want to, so you can see better. So I'm going to put in here the delete user. This is going to be the name of my prop. And what are we doing in here is just like we did up here. It's the same thing. Okay, delete handler I. So as you can see in our user, we specify this interface, which has a name, age, and job, but we never specify this function of the delete user. Okay, look at our interface. Name, age, job, but we never specified the delete user. So because we are passing this property, delete user, so let's go in here, put delete user. This needs to be with a type of a function that does not return anything. So that's how you specify the type of a function that doesn't return anything. If this function was returning a string, you would put, for example, something like this. If you would pass a property in here, for example, like color, you would pass something like this, string. So let me just remove this because we don't need, I'm just trying to explain this part. So I'm going to go void. So now we should be able to, whenever we click on this button, so I'm going to put on click. On click, we are going to run the function that we need to import from up here, which is the delete user. Okay, so let's grab this. On click, let's run this. And I think that's it. Am I missing anything? Property is missing, delete user. Yes, so in here on the top, current user, which we said up here is a user interface. So it means that we are missing that function in there as well. We need to pass it. So let's do that. Let's do just like a function. So this is delete user. And this function is just going to be a function that returns nothing, like an empty object. That's fine. So I think that we got everything. So let's see. Property delete user is missing a type, but required in user. What did I put in here? So we got delete user. We got delete user. So what is it missing? Line 39. So current user. Property delete user is missing type, name, string, age, job string. So we got all of these. Right, so this is when we are updating the state. So when we are updating the state, like we are resetting everything on the submit form, we also need to pass like an empty function. Because we are resetting, we need to put everything in there. So just like that. So delete user, a function that returns nothing. Okay, so we should be all good. I think we are all good now. Let's just delete this stuff that we don't need anymore. I think we are all good. Let's give it a try. I'm gonna put Telmo, I'm gonna put the age, I'm gonna put software developer, add user, delete user, and we are all good. Okay, so let me just add, this is gonna be pilot, and I'm gonna add another user, which is gonna be Peter. Age is gonna be 18, and he is an artist. Okay, let's add the user. Let me just now click in delete user or something like that. So let's just do delete. That's it. Delete. That's it. Okay, only one more thing that I would like to cover before we finish this video, which would be, you can actually, you know, when you are specifying all these different forms of fields, you could potentially pass some, for example, the age that we have in here as an optional field. Okay, so when you pass in here this question mark after this kind of type that you are saying, so it means that you can create an object with all these values, for example, like name, age, job, and so on. By default, it will require you all these values, but when you pass in here this kind of question mark, it's going to be like optional, the value. Okay, so because we have these like that, now there might be some stuff that we need to update. So this one, for example, up here, this from the age, what we want to do is, if the age is defined, okay, so I'm going to put and now I'm going to put in here parentheses, so we can just do this like that. So if we have the age, missing something, yeah, I just need to put it like that and we should be fine. So this is the parent. So why is this not working? Because I need to close these curly braces. So I'm saying in here is that if we have an age, we want to show this part in here, this row that says the age and so on. If not, we don't show it. Let me see if we're missing anything else from here now. I think that we should be all good. So this should be just like optional. Right, let's give it a try one more time. I'm going to pass in here without the age. I'm going to put software developer, add user. So look, we got name and job. So these didn't require that. Another thing that I want to pass before I forget is that in the forms, I want to put all these forms required. So this is an HTML attribute that you can pass into the forms like this required, that basically when you are trying to submit this, it will require you to put it. I'm not going to put on the age because the age is optional, okay? But look, if you try to submit this, it will require you some value. As you can see, look, now it's just complaining about this one. All right, so that's it. Let me just put in here. So this is be Julius, and this is going to be the age 45, and this is going to be a painter and add. So this user was without age and this is with age, and we can delete them. Perfect. Okay, so we got to the end of this project, guys. I'm just gonna do one more video just to style this, because this could be potentially a good project to put on your portfolio website or whatever you want to do with this. Really, this is just like for you to learn a bit more about TypeScript and React and so on. So the next video, which is the last one, you don't have to do it. It's just optional. But if you want to make this application looks nice, let's just do it. All right, so I'll see you in the last video.